We continue to follow breaking news in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, where police say multiple people have been hurt after a shooting at Dennis M. Lynch Arena. This is an indoor skating rink. We do know right now that the suspect is dead. We want to give you a look here on the map so we can give you a better idea of where this is happening on Andrew D. Furland Way. Our sister station reporting that there's actually an employee at the Walgreens nearby where children came into the pharmacy in a panic saying that there was a shooting. The employee said that they were told to close and evacuate that building. They called 911 and the children hid in the store. We do have crews on the way to the scene, and as we wait for those crews to arrive, we do want to bring in WBZ security analyst Ed Davis now to help to give us some context of this situation as we continue to wait for our crews to arrive on the ground. Ed Davis, thank you for taking the time to speak to us.
Good afternoon. It's a chaotic time when something like this happens. Thank you very much.
Now, I know, this is also this is a holiday. This is a day that kids have off of school today, which makes it even scarier for parents to be hearing this news here. This was an indoor skating arena where children and everyone are coming to have a good time, and then something like this happens. We do at least know right now, Ed, that the suspect is dead. Can you talk to us about the rapidness of this response here by police and law enforcement to this incident?
Sure. So an incident like this at a hockey rink, and I've spent a lot of my life at hockey rinks with my children, it's almost akin to a school shooting in that there's a bunch of young people there. Terrible incident to have them go through. So the police responsibility is to secure the scene, take out the shooter, and then to provide aid, medical aid, and evacuation to the children, but most importantly, anybody who has been injured. If the suspect has passed, then they can concentrate their time on first aid. They can concentrate their time on life-saving procedures and getting people to the hospital as quickly as possible. So that's what's going on now. I've been told there's a command post set up in that area, which is standard police procedure to coordinate the massive resources that are usually sent to a situation like this. But the first few minutes are really crucial. What those officers do when they first get there can make the difference between life and death.
And can we talk about how important it was? You have that employee in that nearby Walgreens, because there are a few things here around this arena. I'm looking at a map, but the importance of the employee calling 911 every minute counts, especially in a situation like this. But the response of the employee at that nearby Walgreens was so important in terms of police being able to get out there as soon as possible and secure the area and kind of assess what's going on.
Right. It is crucial that anyone, no matter how close they are to the incident, if they get word of something like this happening, to notify the police immediately. But I think it's also notable that the store had procedures in place to lock down and to provide assistance to the witnesses or potential victims who came into the store. So chances are that's a result of a solid security policy that gets people to practice these type.
Now, we did lose Ed Davis here for a second. We will return to him. There he is. We did return to him right now. We had a little technical difficulty there. I'm sorry, Ed. Can you start where you were previously?
Sure. So it's great that the company reacted the way that they did. You want to make sure the kids are safe, but I think when they immediately locked down the store and they provided aid to the individuals that were involved, that speaks to a company policy where people are prepared and probably practice what they would do in a terrible event like this.
And now, Ed, we have you here, but we also would like to bring in Cheryl Fiandaca as well, who joins us now as a part of our coverage. And Cheryl, this is just heartbreaking, unexpected news here on this Monday, on this holiday, where a lot of children are out of school and just expecting to be able to enjoy their friends and enjoy their family on this day off.
It sure is, and anything can happen at any time. And as Ed said, luckily there's a place that they had policies that folks could run to, and they knew to lock up the store and to keep people safe while police are doing their jobs. And Ed, during a time like this, what are police looking for initially when they get to a scene like this?
Right. Hi, Cheryl. It's a terrible situation to fall into because there's so much uncertainty and chaos around a situation like this. But the officer's responsibility, as I said earlier, was to go to the sound of gunfire, make sure that's taken care of, and then to provide as much aid and life-saving measures as possible to evacuate people who have been injured, and also to secure people who are witnesses. So it very quickly goes from a life-saving process to a crime scene preservation process. There's a lot of responsibility to clear people out of the area, make sure that none of the evidence is disturbed, and then they can start looking for video and other things. Eyewitness accounts are crucial right now.
And I know that we've been reporting that WPRI has been reporting that multiple people have been shot and the gunman is dead. In a situation like this, where this is a hockey rink and there's a lot of folks around, there are a lot of places to go. I mean, how do police secure a scene like this where there's so much going on and there's so many places that anybody could hide?
Right. So it all depends on the facts and circumstances. But as I said, this is, somewhat akin to a school shooting. And the good news is that police are preparing for those type of incidents all the time. So it's really important to get there, to stabilize the scene, to stabilize the victims, and then to clear the building. And the benefit to this type of an incident occurring in an urban area like this is there's a massive amount of police resources that respond to the scene. There'll be multiple police agencies locally, as well as the state police, and probably some federal agencies that will respond immediately upon notification of an incident like this.
And I know that there's probably a lot of parents who either were at the game or were not at the game and are wondering what's going on. And it has to be really terrifying to not be sure about whether your child is okay or whether anybody that was actually a spectator there. I mean, Ed, what are kind of some of the policies that would be put in place now with officials to let people know how they can get in touch with loved ones who may have been there?
As you and I both know, Cheryl, public outreach is critical in an incident like this. So the police getting valid information out to the community is crucial for a bunch of different reasons. One is you don't want to have hundreds of parents responding to the scene and then get into a situation where you're trying to hold them back from going inside. So if you're able to give them information on things like a family reunification center, which will put them in a different location than the crime scene, tell them that there are few casualties and maybe outline who the casualties might be as quickly as possible. And then you can tell everyone else that if you haven't been notified, you don't have a problem. You want to try to reduce the amount of chaos and confusion around an incident like this.
And speaking of reducing the chaos, I think this is a good time too. Right now, we're getting a look at video of the scene. This is a very active scene because you have people that were both at the rink, you have people that were nearby trying to figure out what's going on, and it just leads to an even larger scene for them to contain. But it is always important for our viewers that are watching, we give them the information, but to also help them to maintain the calm, at least as much as we can. Can you talk to us about how long people should expect to see a scene and to see all of these police? Because that can also be jarring, even though, right now, police and authorities, they're in the collection process. But how long should people expect to see all of this in their area? We're just trying to help people maintain an idea, a good idea here.
Right. Well, the police will be notifying people. Usually, the first notification is please don't come to the area. So, but in a situation like this, in a crime scene like this, where there's probably dozens, if not hundreds, of witnesses, you'll be at that crime scene for quite some time, and I'm talking about days. The last thing you want to do is give up a crime scene before you have completely processed the scene and you have all the evidence. So despite the fact that it's upsetting to the neighborhood and the large number of officers responding is unsettling, it's extremely important to do your job, to get done what needs to be done as far as a collection of evidence, and to establish enough evidence so that police and prosecutors can at least go back and provide really explicit details on how this happened, why it happened, and who was involved. And even if the shooter is dead, sometimes there are people that are on the periphery that need to be brought to justice for one reason or another. So all of that stuff is happening right now, and with an eye towards informing the public, but more importantly, to presenting and prosecuting a potential case down the road.
You know, Ed, this seems so much, unfortunately, like the Boston Marathon bombing that, you know, you and I were both involved in that when you were the police commissioner and I was working for you. And, you know, part of what I think, you know, you did so brilliantly was understanding that folks were really anxious and needed to know what was going on and how to push that information out. And at the same time, to try to give them a sense of what they can do to help. And I think one of the things that you quickly asked for were a lot of video. And in this particular case, I think the Live Barn, which is a streaming service that a lot of these hockey rinks have, show some of these games live for parents that aren't able to attend. But also there are all these kids that are going to these games, or parents that are going, that may be recording. I mean, how valuable will some of that video be for this investigation?
Well, that's crucial to the process. You know, it used to be crime scene tape and a search for fingerprints. Now it's video from the area and cell phone tower dumps so that you can see what kind of electronic devices are in the area. And if all that fails, as we see in the Guthrie case, then you resort to the possibility of DNA evidence to get a positive ID on who you're dealing with. So in this day and age, it's extremely important not only to identify and download cameras that are in the area, not only in the rink, which is critical, obviously, but outside. You want to see when this suspect came. You want to see how they got there. You want to see if they were there beforehand, scoping the area out. All of that can go to motive and the amount of planning, the intent of this type of an incident. So video from cell phone cameras from people and parents who were there is that sort of second stage that's really important. I can remember we sent state police out to Logan Airport to download camera video from individuals who had been at the marathon and were trying to leave the city a couple of days later. So all of that stuff is part of the protocol, and this is a heavy lift as far as the logistics around this investigation for the Providence and Pawtucket police.
And in terms of, you know, the forensics and looking at the potential suspect here and what that person may or may not have had for a motive, I mean, how do the police go about gathering that information?
Well, motivation is a lot easier to work on when you have a suspect identified. So if the shooter is dead, they can start there. And they will first examine the relationship that the shooter had with the victims. Is this something that has to do with a game or a sporting event? Is it a domestic incident? Is it two individuals that are unknown to the individual who committed the shooting? All of that information will be categorized and will be part of the formula to determine the motivation for this particular incident.
And sometimes, you know, I think, you know, if we took a look at the MIT shooting and the Brown University shooting, the motive sometimes isn't clear at all, despite whatever evidence comes to light. And how frustrating is that for investigators to not understand or know why this happened?
It's extremely frustrating in two ways. One is that you don't technically need motivation to get a guilty verdict on a case, but it certainly helps the jury. So that's extremely important for the investigation. But on a human side, being able to understand what happened with an eye towards preventing it from happening in the future, I think is crucial. And I think that's why people pay so much attention to this and try to determine what caused someone to act in such an irrational way. But even in the case of the Brown incident, even though he left a tape recording explaining what he did and how he did it, it's still very difficult to determine exactly what would cause that type of dysfunction.
Now, Cheryl and Ed, I do want to make sure that for people who are just tuning in right now, if they're wondering what they're looking at, if they're wondering what we're talking about, because people are tuning in at all different times, we're following breaking news right now. This is in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, where people say multiple people have been hurt after a shooting at Dennis M. Lynch Arena. We do know the suspect is dead. We have two new tidbits to share with you right now. You're getting a look at the scene here, but we do know that we do have a statement from ATF. ATF agents are responding to this reported shooting here in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. They are assisting state and local authorities, but the most important part of their message here is that the public should avoid this area. And we just heard Ed Davis talking about, trying to keep people who are not already at the scene, not involved, to keep them away. So ATF is asking the public to avoid the area and to please follow the directions of Pawtucket Police. But we also have received, there is a bulletin that families are receiving that are in the area. We actually have it here from one parent. I just want to share that with you so that you know what people in the immediate area are receiving. This is from a parent. So they are telling families that they're aware of this serious incident reported at Lynch Arena in Pawtucket. This is where the boys hockey team was playing. Information is still developing at this hour, and right now they are actively working with the event staff and the local authorities because they're doing everything they can to understand the situation as well, alongside authorities that are on the scene. We can tell you here, this is what families are receiving in the area, that the students are secured in multiple locations, and they're still working to confirm the status and location of everyone. But they do have students that were in that arena secured in multiple locations. And the priority is the safety of all students and staff. They do understand that people are seeing this, and this is on their social media feeds, and this is popping up on their phone. People want information as soon as possible, but they are still working to verify details before any more is shared. So this right here, what you just heard me read here, is what parents and families are receiving in the area. So we just wanted to give you an idea of what people in the area are hearing, learning, seeing, because everyone right now is just looking for more information in an incident where there is just such a strong police presence, and as we're working to learn more.
And Ed, to bring you back in, the ATF says that they are assisting. What are they assisting with at this point in the investigation?
The ATF is extremely helpful in these investigations for a couple of reasons. One is that they can trace the serial numbers on the firearms very quickly. And one of the things you want to be able to determine at the outset here is to how the suspect got his hands on the gun. Is he a registered gun owner who owns his own guns? Is he somebody that doesn't have a license that was able to buy them from the street? Did someone provide him with the firearms? That's what I mean about peripheral prosecutions around there. So they'll be able to do that. The other thing that they can do is engage a database called NIBIN, which is the database for spent shell casings and ballistics information. And so they're able to track shell casings that were used in crimes around the country and compare one to the other. So did this gun pop up someplace else? Was it involved in another murder? The other thing I want to say is that the other critical issue that's being looked at right now, there are teams of officers being dispatched to the residents. As soon as they determine who this person was, the shooter was, it is crucial to get to that house and perform an immediate search of the house and the exterior. Because many times in situations like this is the tail end of an incident that happened someplace else. So it's really important that they secure that house, perform an exigent securing to make sure that there are no other victims involved in this, and then to wait for a search warrant so they can get in and exploit the devices and computer equipment that's inside that house.
And so many times, Ed, I know in your career, and we've seen how valuable the information is that police are able to get from cell phones or from computers or laptops. In some cases, it tells them a motive. Some cases, it tells them how long this planning has been going on, or if there were any other plans. I think we've seen some of that in the past. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, people's whole lives are on their devices nowadays. You have a cell phone that has a history of exactly who you've spoken to for the last 30 days or so. You have a search history on the internet. The people are so common that, if you have a question nowadays, you used to have to go to an encyclopedia. Now you just type it in. So it's almost like everything that comes to your mind is listed in your search history in some way, shape, or form. And that is extremely helpful to investigators who are trying to piece together a horrible incident like this. There are other, forms of really important evidence, especially in international terrorism cases, where international calls or texts or even information on Signal and some of these other more sophisticated devices can be caught and downloaded before they're deleted. So all of that information is extremely important in putting together motive and opportunity for a case like this.
And I think we've also seen in the past with some of these types of shootings that the gunman has posted their thoughts or their concerns or their grievances either on social media or on other platforms where it kind of was a signal that something was coming in the future. Can you talk a little bit about that and how common that might be?
Well, it's quite common, and actually there's a lot of crimes that are prevented because someone is telegraphing their intent through social media. It's a public forum that police oftentimes will monitor, and even more importantly, their friends and relatives will sometimes see a post that's troubling and notify authorities as a result of that. So and it doesn't have to be a case of them identifying the shooting incident that they're responsible for. It could be a slow process of someone being sometimes indoctrinated into a radical terrorist group, or just a degrading of their mental capacity over time. When they get online and say things, you can almost see them going downhill. And if you hopefully are able to intervene, but it's such enormous amounts of data that has to be gone through that sometimes it's only hindsight that allows you to do that.
And in so many cases, talking to family or friends of whoever this suspect might be, and trying to find out what they knew or what they might have known about what was going on or what was in his mind or her mind before, what could have led up to this. How valuable is that type of information?
Well, it goes to motive. It also goes to, establishing responsibility for people who may have had some inkling that it was going to happen. There's a trial going on right now where a man provided a gun to his son, even though the son had talked about doing this type of thing, and had an altar in his room in honor of someone who had done something like this before. That can result in criminal charges, and it's very important that a full review of everything that happened, what led up to it, is done. Sometimes it's just an explosion of emotion and insanity that causes somebody to do something like this, but other times there are tells that should be acted on, and we just hope that they are.
And we've talked a lot about, in this moment, everyone wants answers right away about, why this happened, how this could happen. And I think that although we won't have answers immediately, we can say that technology is going to play in the favor of the investigators. Cheryl mentioned Live Barn. People have cell phones that are always rolling. So I think that in this case, getting answers and the why can never be too soon. But I do think technology is going to be helpful in this investigation.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's the first thing that we go to now if you include video. It not only does it give you real insight into what people are thinking, but it provides an enormous amount of evidence that can be helpful to the case.
And now, again, we do want to make sure for those just tuning in right now, you're getting aerials of the scene here. This is breaking news that we are staying on top of here on CBS News Boston and WBZ. This is in Pawtucket, Rhode Island at Dennis M. Lynch Arena. Multiple people have been hurt after a shooting. We do know the suspect is dead, but we have our WBZ security analyst, Ed Davis, who has also reminded us that not only are there police on the scene here and authorities here, as well as ATF, but also authorities on the scene of that suspect that has not yet been identified, working to figure out what could have possibly been the motive of this horrible incident here. We did receive information from Coventry Public School Superintendent. They are sending information out to the parents, and they have also helped us to understand, what was happening during this shooting here. But we do also want to show you here what you're looking at. Still, there are multiple people on the scene, a very active scene, some who were at the rink when this was happening, some who were in the area nearby, just still at the very early stages of this investigation. Still more questions than answers right now, but local authorities and ATF working together to try to figure out what happened and why.
And Ed, where you have so many potential witnesses, gathering them all and bringing them somewhere where police and investigators can speak to them. I mean, how challenging is that to get that done quickly so that people don't disappear that might have information that could be valuable?
It's very difficult. It's a logistics issue. We've had cases where we actually had to engage a bus to pick up the number of witnesses to a crime, bring them all into police headquarters. And I can remember, going into the first floor and seeing a dozen or two people inside the cafeteria or sitting in the hallway outside the detective bureau, just waiting to be interviewed. So, really difficult to do that. There will be crucial witnesses who are right on top of the action that you want to get into an office and download their information on paper as quickly as you can. There are other people that will be in the building that need to be talked to eventually. And so detectives and supervisors at the scene will be making determinations. But it's crucial that they identify everyone who was there to begin with. And then sort of shepherd the most important witnesses in to document, sometimes do a drawing of the suspect, sometimes go through photographs of potential suspects. In this particular case, those things won't be necessary because it seems like the suspect has expired. But all of that stuff is standard procedure, and it is complicated, especially the larger the venue that you're in.